Ask Tom on Home Show.
JR from Marysville, Washington has a question about renovation insulation.
I know Marysville. I've got a client there. It's 40 miles north of Seattle, and it's a sweet little town there in the Pacific
Close to the
Northwest.
border of Canada, huh?
It's home to Boeing. That's where the largest...
Very cool. That's
it's the largest building by volume in the world. It has its
I've seen pictures.
It has its own weather inside. It's that big. So anyway, yeah, you drive by it, you're driving by and say, when are we going to get past this thing? Because you're
like the King Ranch in Texas.
Yeah, it's like that, right? So JR, back to JR. This is his house. It's a 1938 home that was a flip home about 6 years ago, and for a 1938 home, I think it's held up pretty well. He says
it looks good. I like it.
Yeah. I'm remodeling little by little per my budget, he says, and I've come to insulation, and we have an electrician upgrading old stuff. None of this, he says there is none, no insulation here. Let me go back to this and show you the west-facing wall here. He says there's none on this west-facing exterior wall. The exterior is, as you saw, was fiberboard over vinyl over cedar shake, and the room in here absolutely bakes in the summertime. He says the ice dams above it when it snows. I don't want to be the homeowner that messes this up. I want to do what's right for the house. What do you say about a radiant barrier or mineral wool bats or foam board? He says I can't afford foam.
This would actually be a good candidate for foam, just that one wall. What's happening with the ice dams is the heat's getting inside that wall cavity and moving up, and then during the day it's helping melt the bottom layer of the ice and snow that's on the roof. And so the water can't drain off because it's trapped, so it finds its way, it crawls back up under the shingles until it finally starts to drip into the house. But if you can't do that, if you look at that, it's got a shiplap on there too on the inside. That is a very old home. It's nice. Then just use a good quality fiberglass, because you want to pack it nice and tight so air doesn't move through there, and just do that. As far as a radiant barrier, that part of the country, no, you're not a candidate for that at all. And as far as styrofoam boards, you just have to pack them in the whole way, and I don't know if you'd want to do that. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I don't know if it's something that's going to be technically proper to do because of holding it up in place and keeping it. They're not going to make one that thick. So the fiberglass is the way I would go. Unfaced fiber. No, actually, I'm going to step back and say, because it is up there, I would put a faced fiberglass with the paper on the inside because of the cold weather you get in the wintertime. And that way it'll keep a lot of the vapor from transferring through. And if there's a real problem, you can put a vapor barrier on there too, which is a plastic, before you put your sheetrock or your interior wall on there, to keep any moisture from trying to get into that wall cavity. And it'll stop that. Some of the heat might transfer, but the water won't go with it.
Yeah, this is interesting because we get a lot of questions. We're based in Texas, and a lot of people want to put those vapor barriers up, and you can't do that here because the house has to breathe. It's why when we get a freeze here, our house is we have such a hard time with it because our homes aren't hardened for a freeze.
No.
Our
people aren't hardened for a freeze either, by the way.
No, and we live essentially in a tropical environment in the Houston metropolitan area. But in Marysville, one quick question about that, Tom. I've heard you say when you put those bats up in there down here to cut them with an X so they can breathe. No. Is that not you're not going to do it on this?
No. In fact, as I think about this being on a west wall and he's not doing the whole house, I would use the paper facing. I would staple it nice and neat. Do not cut it, because that is a vapor retardant. It's not a barrier. And then I would put a thin layer of visqueen over the wall itself, and then I would put the sheetrock on. I think that would be his best bet on that one particular wall to keep it as dry as possible. What happens when they get cold? I don't know about their area. I'm sure they get some freezes. If you get moisture in a wall and it's going to find a place where it stops, it's going to freeze, and you're going to have water freezing inside a wall. And where is the water in the wintertime? It's to the warm air, which is inside the house. Now, I'm not too concerned about the summertime. Insulation is going to help a lot for him. And if it's just hot as can be, get a good sized air conditioner for the summertime, even if it's a window unit, and blast the air for a few months, because that's all you're talking about. It's the wintertime I'm more concerned about, and keeping water out of the wall, because that way you won't get any freezing and you won't get that residual dripping, as people call ice dams and things, inside the structure.
All right. Do you want any more questions? See, Tom localizes it for your situation when you click the Ask Tom button. When you do, you can send us a video or pictures like we had there, and it helps us do a better job. Just fill out this form, click send, and next thing you know, we'll be answering your question either here on one of our Ask Tom videos or our early edition show. And we do a live version of this every Thursday at 4 o'clock Central Time on Facebook and YouTube Live. But in the meantime, you can find answers to all your questions on our Facebook page, more videos like this on our YouTube channel, of course, at HomeShowRadio.com.